So virtual machines are the new hot topic today, and I say that almost in tears because for me they've been popular for a long time. Now, why it's considered new now is beyond me. But that's cool. It's good to see people catching up to the 90s. That's awesome. At this point, even my wife is on virtual machines. This is her box right here. I got rid of her laptop. Actually, I cannibalized it to make a Linux a Linux box. But I said, yeah, just use your Chromebook, log into here. It's faster. You're going to have a lot more power. I think, what did I do here? I think yeah, not a whole lot of RAM, and it still beats the heck out of that piece of garbage laptop. And my mom uses about 8 different VMs for her crafting purposes. Some are proprietary stuff, so I can't tell you much, but believe me, they come in handy. I use Hyper-V for most things. When I'm on my Linux laptop, I use KVM. So, I mean, on Windows, I use Hyper-V, and my Linux VMs are in Hyper-V, but on my laptop, which is a Linux laptop, I use KVM, and I have a Windows VM on it. So, exactly the opposite. Now, I also use VirtualBox. Some software doesn't like being in a VM, so if that's the case, I'll a lot of times use VirtualBox. And VirtualBox 9 times out of 10, prevents it from detecting it's in that thing, and yay, great. So, anyways, I have a number of VMs just running here. They come and go all the time, and that's kind of the point of this video. How can I get them to come and go easily without the hassle? I mean, I'm super lazy, so I have to make sure everything is efficient, so I write a lot of scripts to do things for me. And that's what we're going to be doing here. Now, let me jump over to PowerShell, the ISE, and I also mentioned that I am running as admin. And this PowerShell script is going to create my VM, and it's going to do so using the concept of a differencing disk, which I'll mention here in a second. But the first thing two things I want to notice before I do anything is this. One, I don't use PowerShell modules. I think it's fully ridiculous. It kind of has the feeling of a GAC. I'm creating some sort of module so that I can call it from anywhere. No, it's too GAC-y to me. No, we need to get away from that mindset. We need to just have something that runs in this local space, and that's it. And that's what I'm doing here. I also don't buy into the actually I don't see any of it here anyways, any weirdness. A lot of people will, quite frankly, just go full retard with the way they write things. Like, they'll use something like invoke web, something like this, when in fact you just use wget. These people are the reason PowerShell is not the default in Windows. These people are keeping it back because they are making people hate PowerShell because of how much typing you have to do. How many times do you have to hit the freaking shift key? Because it's like, oh, it's capital, lowercase, what was it again? Nah, it's just wget, get it over with. So we're going to be an adult. We're not going to pretend we're VB6 programmers and just do this right. Now, I have this thing here. I said 2 things. So this is the other thing. I'm running inside of this thing. It's just a virtual environment. It's just a scope. So that when I do things in here, I'm not setting variables that are then going to be shared between tabs. See, over here, same thing. Up here, same thing. But if I get rid of that, all of a sudden, yeah, it's going to, I'm going to set it here, then I can read it here. Not cool. I don't like that. So what's going on here? Well, all I'm doing here is setting some stuff between the edit and the end of edit. There's some things you want to set. So give it the name, what operating system, how much memory, how much max memory, that is to start, and how much you can scale to. Which switch to use, do I want to use a private switch, how many processors, and how does it work? Well, it's pretty simple. Create the hard drive, create the VM, set the memory, set the processor count, and then tell it to stop using the stupid production checkpoint. Use the standard. I might mention that in a second. Just be aware that there's this checkpoint concept. You want to make sure to always use standard. Unless you have some really ridiculous reason to use production, which will probably require you a video series on and write a book about to defend your actions, you always want to use the standard. The standard is a checkpoint, so you can actually revert to something. It's insane. Never mind. I don't know why that's the default. Anyways, so this is what we're going to do. Now, my OS here, I'm just using just a piece of text. I mean, where's my ISO? What am I doing? Well, I'm not doing anything like that. Here is a list of operating systems I have configured just ready to go on my machine. And I did this because at some point in the past, this is how I did it rather, at some point in the past I went in here and I just did the wizard and I created, or I used PowerShell like an adult. But the point is I created a virtual machine, set up the operating system, and just made sure that all the updates and base software, not every single thing under the sun, but base software I needed was in there. So when I look at my folder here, I'll see that I have a whole lot of disk images. And that, well, I mean, if you want to, you can use the word image, I guess it's fine, but these are the parent disks. These are the disks that are, if I were to attach a virtual machine to this, I have an operating system out of the box. Alright, pretty cool. Like this one here actually has Visual Studio 2015, SQL Server, and every other thing you could possibly think of installed. Anything like the Mongo client and stuff like that. It's just every possible thing I could think of is just installed. It's just insane. And it's the preview 4 of the Windows Server 2016. And I have a couple of other ones that are not even used. Like down here, anything down here I don't want to use anymore. I'm kind of in a transitional period. When I know I don't need them, I'll delete them. These are my VirtualBox ones, So these are just full, ready to go disks that don't require install. This is post-install. And if you look at the properties here, you'll see that they're read-only. This is because I don't want to edit them. I don't want to do anything with that like that. When I create a new disk, I'm actually saying that is the parent disk. The disk I'm creating is only going to contain the diff information, that is the deltas, of what I'm doing to that system. Now, yay, talking's fine, but let's actually run the darn thing. Hopefully this will run. I might have a file somewhere, I don't know, that's blocking it, but no, it's working. I gotta have more confidence. Okay, so I went through and I grabbed this one, which is right here. Alright, now let me look at what it actually did. So it went here, so I'll load that, and here it is. 4 meg, sweet. Now let's start that thing. Let me jump in here. Alright. Okay, let me get the address. It is 12. Alrighty. Let me go over to Secure CRT. I can't imagine why anybody ever uses PuTTY. Ugh. So let's. What I'm going to actually do is copy one of these that I know is a good setup. Yeah, I'm going to actually call this one Debian Security Lab, because it's going to be the point of this box that I'm setting up. It's not just for a demo. I'm just recording my setup of it. So once again, numlock working, huh? Okay. Yay. Alright, I'm in. I was able to get in pretty quickly because I use the same passwords across all these boxes. So let's get out of here. And just never go there again. So I'm done with that. Now I've got my box set up. Now here's what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is run an update. Then I'm going to run an upgrade. While that's going, let's look here. See, this is growing. It's growing because I'm doing stuff. It's pretty obvious. But you'll notice that this one here isn't changing. I mean, the last modified isn't going anywhere, nor could it. It's read-only. So that's the base system, and this is just the diff information. And you can have multiple systems hanging off that if you wanted to. That's cool. So once I've done that, I realized that I didn't so much make a mistake, but I kind of want to, before I go further, demo this. So let's run a checkpoint. Alright, this is a simple checkpoint that is a standard checkpoint, so that anything I go beyond it is going to be saved here instead of here. I wanted to do this initially, but actually it's better I'm doing it here. So let's just, as long as it's before this, I'm good. So let's run the upgrade now. Yes, and this is probably going to take a while, because I think the kernel is going to be downloaded as well. Oh, I guess not. I already thought that would take a while. Alrighty. So let me go back here to show you that that one's growing now. Yep, see? So it's not that big of a deal. I was thinking there'd be more stuff, so I wanted to snapshot it first. But yeah, it's fine. This is good. Alright, so it's doing the upgrade. Now while it's doing this, let's go back to PowerShell and just mention something. If you're doing Hyper-V and you get into this model, it's worth learning Azure. Now I've gone through some of this setup a few minutes ago, so I don't have to play with it again. Let me actually undo some of my nonsense. Here's the Azure version of this whole thing. And I say Azure version of the same thing because it is. It's just Hyper-V in the cloud. So I have this thing where I'm grabbing my credentials. I've already done it, but if let's say I didn't. So I put in my credentials, right? Whatever, just some fake password. And now, there it is. Alright, give my name, blah, blah, blah. Get this, create my storage account, this is where the good stuff is, set my Azure subscription, whatever. And then I can get the Azure VM images, plow through them, and then, filter out what I want. So let me do this real quick, looking for anything that has CentOS in the image name. You can't do this with family name because family names are actually like who built the darn thing. So if you wanted something with System 5, there you go. You wanted System D, there's the CentOS 7, so you can pick your image, and here's my image I wanted. So I set my image, I pick my size, create my VM, I tell it that it is Linux, and here's the username and password, here's the user type, and all that good stuff. Actually, I don't have all the, it's good enough. I'm keeping the defaults, I guess. So I guess it is just username and password. And then I tell it what subnet, give it the IP address, and I say create the darn thing. You're going to definitely want to understand the concept of Azure Networks. It's one of the greatest. Azure Networks and Azure Storage are just two of the greatest things. Oh, that and Azure Websites are just the three greatest things ever. Azure Websites versus the networks, I don't know which one's cooler. It's so neat. But anyways, you do the same thing, you're going to get the same point we did in Hyper-V. So you can do it in the cloud. But anyways, we're done with that, so we're back here. Now let's look at this diff file again. Here you go. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to this. I almost said PowerShell. We go back to Hyper-V Manager, and I'm going to delete this checkpoint. You gotta be careful with your terminology. It's a checkpoint, but by deleting this, it's not like I'm deleting this. I'm deleting the barrier between these two. So it's like the checkpoint point. So by deleting the barrier between these two lakes, I'm letting them flood together. So I'm going to delete this, and it's going to merge. What is it merging? It's merging these. Well, it did it. So now I have this one file. So there's 1 gigabyte of updates in my system. Now here's what I want to do. That was a hefty amount of updating that I do not want to do each time. I want to just do that once. So I'm going to do this once by this. I'm going to go into settings, go to my hard drive, inspect, and I just want to show you this. You'll notice that this is the parent. Alright, that one's over here. Alright, so just keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is just shut down. It's all the same. I could type shut down now or just do this. Now watch this. Now when I go in here, more than just inspect, my current file, this and this, I'm going to run I just closed it for some reason. I'm going to run edit on this. This is actually really cool. But before I do that, let's remove the read only. This is really dangerous what I'm doing here. Alright, so if this doesn't work right, I have to go through hours of work to redo the whole video and everything, and it's horrible. So hopefully this works. No, I just would delete this video and you never see it. Anyways, go next. I want to actually merge this with the parent. Alright, so let's do this, merge to the parent. That's perfectly fine. Go. This is really scary stuff that I'm doing here. Alright, so now let's check out the progress. Yeah, see, this was modified, and then, yep, as you can see over here, that file disappeared. Alright, it's all right here. Now what I'm going to do is totally get out of this, totally get out of everything, make sure it's off. Yeah, good, it's off, and I'm actually going to delete this. Alright, then I'm going to go back into here, turn my read-only back on. Okay. Then go back into my script again and run this again. Alright, same thing we did at the beginning. Go back into here, start the darn thing. With a little bit of paranoia. Yep, that looks good. Now I'm just going to let that start, and I don't think I need the IP address. Nothing's going to change in that regard. The MAC address didn't go anywhere. So let's hit enter and give it a second. You can see down here it's still booting. Not a big deal. Okay, now we're in. Now, let's see here. Yep, okay. apt-get update. apt-get upgrade. Oh, look at that. No updates. So I was able to do my update on my system and actually update the master file, so that now if I were to start up a bunch of systems, each system initially only takes up this much space, and once the system is up and ready to go, I'm going to make sure I'm fully logged out, and I'm going to create a snapshot right away. And the snapshot that I did right away is basically going to allow me to revert to that point. This is a lab system. So in the security lab, I'm going to install this, install that, install this other stuff. Another checkpoint, do some more stuff, another checkpoint, and then I can just revert back and forth and create a full branching tree of different things. But the initial setup only required 226 megs. That's how I'm able to get by with a relatively small main disk, you know, because your C drive needs to be small. It just needs to be. This is all there is to it. And the reason it needs to be small is because that's the amount of space you're going to lose once you need it when you need to reinstall your hard drive. And if you're lazy like me, you're not going to have the time or energy to hook it up to another machine and back up your files. So I don't do that. So that's the basic idea of setting up various virtual machines on Linux. And just as a side note, watch this. See, now I have a couple different machines, alright? And I'm going to start them up. And I'm going to say, this is where things get really weird. Let's say on the machine 3 here, which by the way is running, I'm going to actually create another disk and just assign it to this one. Okay. LVM1, LVM2, LVM3, sweet. Let's look at this guy here. There's my disk 1, 2, and 3. So that when I'm in here, oh yeah, as a side note, it's the one thing I do not like about Windows. It's the one thing. So yeah, upgrade. Again, we still have our updates. Notice it's a different IP address. And notice that I have, I really wish I made this bigger, these various disks here, these 20 gig, 20 gig, 20 gig disks. See that? 20, 20, 20. They're already set up and ready to go.